This is the NABJ interview with Trump. It stands for National Association of Black Journalists. And it's basically a bunch of black journalists interviewing Trump on how he would do on black issues, things like that. Let's give it a listen. It's bound to be psychotic. I've been told it's psychotic. While we listen, we're going to play some Metroid Dread. Should be in the background. Won't bother you too much. You never played before. All right, let's listen to this ridiculous nonsense.
Former Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton have attended the NABJ conventions either as presidents or as
She called it the NABJ?
presidential candidates in past years. NABJ is currently in conversation with Vice President Kamala Harris's team to schedule a Q&A either in person or virtually in September. As journalists, we use opportunities like these both to inform our reporting, but also to help voters understand the choices that they face in a consequential and historic election year. NABJ has partnered with PolitiFact to fact-check this conversation in real time.
Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting one.
You can access that feed on social media.
People clapping for it. I love it.
Using the
It shouldn't be accessed on social media. It should be on a chyron on the bottom. Or honestly, you know what they should do? They should pause the thing to fact check him live as they go. They shouldn't let him get it out without somebody correcting it, in my opinion. But okay.
hashtag NABJ fact check. Again, the hashtag is NABJ fact check. We have a lot to get to, and we do not want to waste any time. So let's bring out the former president of the United States, the Republican nominee for president, former President Donald Trump.
Sick beat.
Hi, Mr. Trump. Jill Scott, BBC. Thank you. How are you? Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true.
Heckers, I just died. I was about to get the Varia suit, too. I'm super sad.
You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked
Dude, I love it.
black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist.
Yes, lay into him.
You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort.
Well, white supremacist is a little bit of an understatement there, isn't it? Nick Fuentes is a Nazi. Don't say white supremacist when you mean Nazi. Say Nazi. Nick Fuentes and Kanye West both are Nazis. Like, they love Hitler.
So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner.
Oh, give me a break, dude. Get over yourself. You're trying to get black votes, okay? Shut your mouth and listen to what others have to say for once. Jesus.
Question.
Like, think about what they're saying to you.
Don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network.
Oh, please, dude.
And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of...
He has not. He has hurt the black population over time. He has done damage to the black community as time went on. I don't want to hear it.
This country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs.
Black workers.
I've done so much, and, you know, and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing. and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step.
The f***ing question, bro. You did this stuff. These are things that you did. Tell me how you're going to change what you did or make it better or what you're going to do differently in the next term or whatever. Last term, you did not bring in more black voters, okay? You might have pushed some out the door. Now, how are you going to fix that? How are you going to make it better? He's going to sit there and complain about how he's being treated. Get over yourself.
Further, I was invited.
It isn't about you, okay? Being president isn't about you. It's about them. It's about others. Jesus.
Exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And
oh, my God.
then you said you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was
Mr. President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
you
it's
to
a
answer the
very
question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
believe that
answered the
black voters
question.
can trust you with another.
He hasn't said shit about the question.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
Better than
Oh, please.
answer.
better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights
And
Act.
for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a...
Look, let me let you in on a little secret, Donald. If you didn't know this, that's what journalism is, bro. When people ask you tough questions and you have to answer them. Welcome to the world. First time? He is such a joke of a human being. You think Biden is getting like softballs thrown down the center of the plate every day? No. He's getting tough questions too, okay? He's getting questions that he doesn't want to answer either. I don't want to hear it. God, he's a perpetual victim. Richest f***ing 2-year-old on planet Earth, or he was when he was 2 years old. Richest 2-year-old when he was 2, and he is nothing but a perpetual victim, non-stop. Me. I'm so mistreated.
hostile manner. I think it's a disgrace. I really do.
Let me just ask a
He doesn't like the hostile manner. That is the press, okay?
follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion is what it stands for. And the implication, when you say somebody's a DEI hire, is the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at an organization. Say Disneyland's DEI department has to hire a certain number of Black people every year. So they'll hire whoever. They'll hire whatever. They'll hire a certain number of them just to get it out of the way. So they don't have to worry about it anymore. So that it roughly matches society. How could Kamala possibly be a DEI hire? Which department would have hired her that way? Who would have hired her that way? The point is that they're inferior to everybody else. They're not as good. If you're a person of color or a woman or a whatever, a minority group, you're not as good as your majority group, white men. You're not as good as them. That's the point. This guy, Donald Trump, cannot help but to call people DEI hires. And, it goes even deeper than that sometimes. I mean, it gets really, really disgusting. Here, check this out. This is Charlie Kirk talking about DEI hires. If he's on an airplane and he sees somebody that's Black as the pilot.
Turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off, and I feel better now.
No, I mean, you want to go thought crime? I'm sorry, if I see a Black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Turbulence.
I'm sorry. That's not thought crime. That's you are a scumbag, okay? people can think that you're a scumbag and you're not like being subjected to like thought crimes or whatever. It's possible that you're just a piece of trash. That could be, right? No, it can't be that. It's that he has to have his speech silenced or whatever the hell. Like, my God, dude, these people are perpetual victims. Like, they cannot help themselves but to view it as victimhood. Okay, so they said Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. It asked she wouldn't be in her position if she didn't have special privileges given to her because she's black or whatever. If she were white, she wouldn't be in that position, is the point here. And to that I say, it's harder to become a vice president, or whatever. It's harder to do anything, honestly, as a black person than it is as a white person. I would prefer a black pilot. I would prefer a woman as a pilot because it's harder. You can't just like do that shit. It's difficult. You have to work for it. But okay, tell me more about how Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. This guy who failed upward is going to tell us about how she was a DEI hire.
Go ahead. How do you define
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
Give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition?
DEI.
Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me if you.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So, I've known her a long
A little bit different? What does that mean?
time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian.
Oh my God, they're leaning into this Indian heritage thing. Indian heritage. Yeah, she is of Indian heritage, partially. She's also of black heritage, like African heritage. That's not a win. That's not a W that he just got. Now, for what it's worth, Kamala Harris has like Indian heritage, Indian parents. However, she is an African American because African American is not an ethnicity. It's a what's the word I'm looking for here? It's escaping me all of a sudden. It's a social category. So African Americans include people who were affected directly or indirectly by the slave trade a couple hundred years ago. So Jamaicans came from Jamaica, 8 months ago and just got their green card and they're hanging out. They're not African Americans. You're only an African American if you were affected by the slave trade. So in some adverse way, it's a metric invented specifically for the purpose of defining a group for reparations, for example, or whatever. So Kamala Harris is Indian, and also she's African American because she had some connections to the slave trade. Like her family was victim of the slave trade at one point. That's the point. Now, if Jamaicans, as Dr. Hayes points out, Jamaicans were affected by the slave trade. If Jamaicans were affected by the American slave trade, that is, that we are referring to when we talk about like reparations, like these people should be getting reparations for what's happened to them. If they were affected by that, then they would be African American. If they were affected by a different slave trade, I don't know. I'm just throwing out a say Jamaicans were affected by Cuban slave trade, for example. I'm just throwing out names or whatever. Then they wouldn't be African American. They would be black, and they would be ex-slaves, but they wouldn't be African American. Anyway, Kamala Harris is an African American for the purpose of categorizing her as someone affected by the slave trade, and she's also of Indian descent. Can be both. And they're like really leaning into this whole she's Indian, not African American. No, she's both. She's both Indian and African American. Like, give it a rest, people.
Heritage. I didn't know she was black.
Yeah. The British slave trade. Yes, thank you. The British slave trade is the term I'm looking for.
Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian?
Oh my God, dude, give it a rest. He is such an embarrassment. You know, people laugh at him, and I don't know if he realizes this. Maybe, maybe not. They're not laughing at him like, haha, he's funny. They're laughing at him like, haha, he's a fucking clown. Like he wears makeup around, like he's a clown.
Or is she
Like, I would be embarrassed by that if I were him, personally. But, you know, that's just me. Whatever.
black?
She is always
But you know
identified
what?
as a black
I
woman. She went to a
respect either
historically black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she went.
Like, has she been affected by issues that affected black Americans? The answer is yes. Has she historically been mistreated by people based on the color of her skin? You know, people assume that she's black. Yes. I mean, assume that she's an African American. Yes. Was she affected by the British slave trade? Yes. She's black. Like, it doesn't matter what you saw her as or what you just heard about her. It's irrelevant. She's black.
She became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do
And
you
I
believe
think,
that she is
somebody should look into that too when you ask, continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some
I really
Republicans
don't
have
know.
said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be.
The question is, would she be in this position if she were white? Is she qualified for this?
Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length, and we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that.
Well, you told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today.
Oh, I know her. Wait, I'm familiar with that reporter, I think. I don't remember her name, though.
I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we are divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And
Okay, I don't want to, like, stop every 15 seconds, but I feel like I need to make a point here, okay? An important point. America is divided. That's true. America's divided. But it's not Democrats who divided America, and it's not Democrats who can bring it back together either. Republicans divided it and must bring it back together. And let me prove that to you real quick. This is Brian Tyler Cohen, went on the Piers Morgan show, and he kind of succinctly explains this division problem, if you will.
One trick
Is this? Yeah, okay.
One trick that Kamala Harris missed in her speech, it was not a bad speech at all. But one thing she didn't do, she didn't allude to the assassination attempt on Trump. And it's only been 9 days since someone tried to murder Donald Trump and actually shot him in the ear, killing him by a quarter of an inch. Would it not have been a smart move in between calling him,
For the record, it was a Republican that did that. Just want to make that clear. Voted Republican, was registered Republican.
a sexual predator and a con man and a fake and blah, 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 very ad hominem stuff? Would it not have been a smart move in terms of unity had she just taken a moment to acknowledge the assassination attempt and say how pleased she was that he survived it? Something of that.
All right, let's talk about unity, okay? Brian Tyler Cohen's going to lay it down for us.
Nature.
Piers, I find it so bizarre that the onus is always on the Democrats, is always on the adults in the room to create unity. Where was everybody for the last 6 years calling for unity when Donald Trump was president? And, as far as the violence is concerned, I feel like any effort to try to pin, again, the onus on Democrats in terms of lowering the temperature in this country is just a testament to the fact that the Republicans are graded on the curve. Remember, it was not the Democrats. While we're talking about political violence, it wasn't the Democrats who laughed at Paul Pelosi being bludgeoned with a hammer. That was Donald Trump. It wasn't Democrats who called for military tribunals for Liz Cheney. That was Donald Trump. It wasn't Democrats who laughed at a kidnapping plot against Gretchen Whitmer. That was Donald Trump. It wasn't Democrats who called for General Mark Milley to be executed. That was Donald Trump. Wasn't Democrats who posted a baseball bat photo with Alvin Bragg and threatened death and destruction if he was charged. So in all of these examples, Piers, it is not the Democrats who've done this. It's not the Democrats who've validated the use of political violence as a tool in this country. And it shouldn't be on the Democrats all of a sudden to be the adults in the room.
All right, Brian, to a point, Lord Copper, as we would say in the UK, right? It is the Democrats who for 8 years have screamed that he's Adolf Hitler. That's fairly violent rhetoric. You're comparing him directly
no.
Absolute.
No, it isn't fairly violent rhetoric, quote unquote. It's not. Calling him Adolf Hitler is not violent rhetoric. It just isn't. Comparing him to a dictator that he's like is not violent. That's pointing out the obvious. I refuse to accept that calling him or referring to him as like somebody who is similar to Adolf Hitler is violent. I refuse that. I'm not going to accept it. No, it's bullshit.
Genocidal maniac who murdered 12 million people, including 6 million Jews in a Holocaust. So,
okay, no one is saying that Donald Trump did those things. We're saying he uses similar rhetoric styles. He even quotes Hitler word for word sometimes, like a lot of the time. He quotes Hitler word for word. So I don't want to hear it. He's like Hitler. Yes, he is. That's not violent. Hitler comes along, hypothetically, starts spouting off nonsense and complaining about DEI hires and all this shit. And somebody says, wow, that's like exactly what Hitler did. Like exactly. Word for word. And they say, you can't say that. That's violence. No, it's not.
When you do that, that is violent rhetoric.
No, it isn't.
Piers, if Donald Trump acts like a fascist, it is not the Democrats' fault for calling him a fascist.
You're saying he is?
That is his
Hitler?
Yes, he is literally Hitler. As in, Hitler took a time machine and, like, stored it in Argentina and waited for the opportune moment. A cryogenic freezing chamber. He took a freezing chamber, waited in Argentina for 2024, and then resurrected himself with this cryogenic freezing whatever. Yes, that's what happened. And he put on he caked on makeup until you couldn't fucking tell who it really was. Orange makeup for some reason. I don't know why he thought orange makeup would look good. And named himself Donald Trump. Yes, that's what happened, Pierce. That's what everybody is saying happened. Absolutely.
Piers, if Donald Trump acts like a fascist, it is not the Democrats' fault for calling him a fascist.
You're saying he is?
That is his Hitler?
Yes, he's literally Hitler. Yes, that's what we're saying.
He is Hitler?
No, absolutely not. But I'm saying he does act like a fascist.
Fuck it, man. Embrace it. Embrace it. Yes, he is Hitler. I am saying he has a time machine and he is Hitler reincarnated. Yes, or whatever.
Fascist. He does want to consolidate power in the executive branch. He does want to send the military into American cities. He does want to
terminate the Constitution. So you have no problem comparing him to Adolf Hitler?
No, he acts like Hitler. Are you shitting me with this? I mean, I've done this before. Let me just give two examples. Anybody, like historians are freaking out right now by by what they see Trump doing. Like freaking out.
In honor of our great veterans on Veterans Day, pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections.
Like literal quote directly from Hitler's mouth. The radical leftist thugs who lie and cheat and steal and live in our country like vermin. Those are words out of Hitler's mouth. No joke. So when he directly word for word quotes Hitler, yeah, I'm going to say that he's like Hitler. Surprised by that? This is just one example. I've got more. I don't want to go through them right now. But there's another where he says immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. Poisoning the blood of our country. That is a direct quote, word for word, from Hitler. Now, you may not like that he's quoting Hitler or whatever, but you can't tell me he's not quoting Hitler. He is. He's quoting him, okay? You don't like it that Trump is being compared to Hitler, then tell him to stop quoting him constantly.
I am calling him a fascist. That's what I'm doing.
I'm calling him exactly like Hitler in the things that he says and does. That's what I'm doing. Embrace it.
That was me on Piers Morgan.
Oh, that was the end of the video. And the point is that Donald Trump is like Hitler in the things that he does. He is. Do not let people get away with this faux outrage like this. Oh, I can't believe you'd say such a thing. He killed so many people, Hitler did. He killed, 6 million Jews or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And guess what? Trump is not killing people right now. Sure, I'll give you that. But he's using the exact same rhetoric styles, the exact same ones. And he's even quoting him in some situations. So, no more BS. I mean, tell me what you think about it in the comments. These people are just ridiculous. They're just an embarrassment.